Call this meeting of the Samaritan Ad Hoc Committee to order. This meeting was noticed in accordance with the appropriate rules by the clerk's office. We're all in attendance. Call this meeting of the Samaritan Ad Hoc Committee to order. This meeting was noticed in accordance with the appropriate rules by the clerk's office. We're all in attendance of the Samaritan Ad.
Okay, that's interesting to know. So if we have our computer open and the volume on,
It's probably picking it up from here.
it'll pick up
From
the,
here.
okay,
All right, we'll
interesting.
continue with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first order of business for this committee is to elect a chairperson. Have any nominations?
I nominate Tony.
Need a second for those? No, okay.
Nominate Linda, correct?
I'll second it.
Okay, any other nominations? Right, so we need a ballot. Any campaign speeches you'd like to make?
Anybody want to say, don't vote for me,
I have
please?
a question.
Oh, I don't vote, that's right.
If I'm the chair, do I still get to bring up all of my concerns and thoughts and comments, et cetera?
Absolutely, you're part of the committee.
Yep.
I'm still voting for Tony.
One vote for Linda Gurath and another vote for Linda Gurath. So Linda Gurath is four votes to one.
Great.
Congratulations, yep.
You guys are gonna have to help me with Robert's Rules of Order.
That's why Brad's here.
Yep.
Do I have to do this now?
Yep, sure me.
Yep.
All right, well, I don't have to do that. Okay, so is there a motion? We have to vote for the vice chair, right?
Yep.
So I guess I need an agenda now, don't
Yeah.
I? So do we have any nominations?
Nominate Jody.
Second.
I nominate Tony.
Second.
We need to vote.
Tony,
Any
you're trying
other-
to get out of this.
Any other nominations?
All right, we have one vote for Tony Toma, another vote for Tony Toma, vote for Jody Schulteis. Another vote for Tony Toma, and a vote for Jody Schulteis. So 3-2, Tony Toma.
Congratulations.
So, let's see. Okay, so, and none of us had really a chance to read this with the dilemma of today's senior care industry.
I believe that
Hmm?
Matt is gonna, Matt will present.
Matt's gonna present.
Oh, awesome. Matt, you're up. Thank you. Works for me.
Mike, we'll turn it on. It'll turn red.
There you go.
Now it's red. Okay, well, good afternoon. Thank you very much. What I intend to do is go through this 2-page document. And what it does is, first of all, lay out the dilemma that we're facing, and very briefly, and then we'll go to the options. And I'd like to read each of the options. And as I read option 1, for example, then I'll stop and I'll answer questions, or I'll take suggestions as to what you'd like to see us investigate at future meetings. I think we're quite open for afterwards. If you go home or during the process before the next meeting, if you have other suggestions, to send them to Mike and he'll gather them. So in the meantime, I can start working on it, because if you would like other speakers, experts in certain areas of the field, it's going to take me some time to locate them, to arrange their calendar with our calendar for the next committee. And therefore, I'm not really expecting to have a date for the next committee meeting tonight. I would think that once we start putting together the information that you require and how I can piece that with the speakers, that's sort of like what we did with the task force. And then I was able to get them all together. So any questions about that? Okay, then let's begin with the dilemma of today's senior care industry. First of all, Samaritan Health Center, we are suffering from a severe staff shortage. And this is pretty common across the state of Wisconsin and across the United States. Ever since COVID in 2020, there have been myriads of professional staff for healthcare leaving the industry. Whether it was required of the vaccination or the simple fact of the being so contagious, and they were so fearful of the unknown. It was a pandemic, and those people in general have not come back. So there is an extreme shortage. Today, Samaritan is facing 43 vacancies. That's 2 nurse managers, 8 RNs, LPNs, registered nurses or licensed practical nurses, 23 certified nursing assistants, and 10 registered assistants or resident assistants. So there's quite a shortage. And therefore, during that process, Julie Driscoll, who's the Chief of Health and Human Services, as well as Taya Walk, they did an excellent job of working with the shortages and with discussion of leadership. First of all, Josh Showman, and then afterwards, the county board. we ended up developing an 18-month incentive, which totaled 2.3 million. We've already gone through about a year, so we're left with around 6 to 7 months. And also, we introduced another package, which is called pickup pay, and that's approximately 400,000. Now, we may not hit the 400,000 because it's directly correlated with if we can fill the vacancies. So we're in quite a dilemma right now, and those dollars are all coming from ARPA funds. Any questions about that? Then in letter C, we're looking at eventually, if the county board determines that we are to close Samaritan, or if we are to come up with some type of selling Samaritan where they'll take, the purchaser would take the license and not the residents, or even with a package deal with a negotiation with Ozaki County or any other county, we may be still facing placement, safe placement for all the residents that are not being able to be transported. And so, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as we go through it. But the bottom line is we could be facing anywhere from $250,000 to an additional $1 million in pay for staff to stay on in order to protect our residents. Yes, Jody. Sorry.
Question on the length of time you can use the ARPA funds. I know they have restrictions as far as it being time limited.
And there is, it's 2024, and I'm not sure what month, if that's all the way to the end of the year, or, but it is in 2024. 2026? All right, 2026. Thank you. Very good questions. Okay, so let's look at number one, the generic public-private partnership or public-public partnership. What we're looking at, what we have is we have 131 licensed skilled nursing facility beds. Today's census is 52. CBRF, we have 31 beds licensed. Today we have 28 residents. RCAC, we have 24 apartments. Today we are serving 21 residents. That's the population that, one, the license that we're selling, or two, the facility that we're selling, or three, only the license, and then we would be responsible for a safe protection and placement. In letter B, Lasada Senior Living Campus, we are in the startup of negotiations. And as we go through this committee will be operating until the end of January. Sometime during that time frame, we will probably go to a closed session and discuss the negotiation. If we contact and work with a second county, we would do the same thing. Early on, it's not worth it. Letter C is with negotiations. Letter C is, I want to thank Brad Stern, our county attorney, who's working very diligently with the attorneys from Reinhardt, looking at all the technicalities. The most critical area is the skilled nursing, and there are myriads of regulations about Title 19 especially, and what we can and cannot do in subsidizing any of the licensed beds in any type of a negotiation. So we're working through all the pros and cons. We just met for a couple hours today. We're meeting again on Monday. We've met with them 2 other times prior to that. Any questions about the exploration of partnerships? Yes, sir.
I think one of the things we'll want to make sure that we discuss, and we'll probably need to be in closed session, but if we go that route, we're gonna have chapter 55. And if they're going to go to Lasada, we would need to know what type of future costs we might incur with that. That will probably carry through to some of these other options.
And we will, and this is being, chapter 55 is addressed a little later on, just very briefly. But Health and Human Services portion, they are responsible along with the county attorney in working with a safe placement for chapter 55. The board did appoint Samaritan, only their health center, not the RCAC or CBRF, for protective placement. So we will address that. That is very crucial. Thank you. Any other questions about the private partnership? Okay, in looking at, did you have?
Well, I will. I don't know if you had gotten a copy of what I had put together with kind of an alternative idea.
No, I have not.
It'll kind of link into some of that. So maybe we'll get to that at the end.
Okay. Is that something that the entire board received, or this committee?
No, I just gave a copy to Mike.
Okay, yes. And if not today, we certainly can address it at our next meeting as well. But, okay, thank you. Then number 2, selling Samaritan Campus or selling the skilled nursing 131 bed license. Today, the only value is the skilled nursing. That's been closed. The state will not allow any new licensed beds for skilled nursing. The CBRF and RCAC, there's not a limit to those, so they really have no value. If you're talking about the actual building, then there is value. But for the license itself, there is not value because anyone could start up a CBRF or RCAC. So the value is the 131. Years ago, it was extremely valuable. They were selling for about $36,000 a bed. Today, they go from zero value to the last time it was sold a couple years ago. I believe they received $5,000 per bed. So we have a number of options when we look at selling Samaritan Campus. The first option is letter A, and that's offering to sell the entire campus. That includes all 3 licenses. That includes the fields as well as the health center, the 2 buildings, 2 parking lots, the north side and the south side of our property, and all the associated property. During this time, since the board acted at the full county board, I've been in conversation with 3 separate companies. I'm actually dealing with brokers from those companies. They have contracts with healthcare providers. And the one has not come forward with any type of interest, but I'm still working with that group. The second one is interested in only the skilled nursing license and indicated to me that they're considering staying in Washington County, but they're not interested in our property. And the third one would be interested in the entire package. So we're just starting. And again, when we get into more information, that too could be covered in a closed session. Any questions about that one? All right, going on to, we could sell the fields only. And that would cost us the amount of money to tear down the health center. That's the 1967 building, which houses the skilled nursing and the CBRF. Then we have the newer building, the RCAC, and that one could stay. We could raise the other building, the health center building. And then if we sold that piece of property, that would entail just the south parking lot, the roadway, and the newer building. We could again sell strictly the license. And when we do that, if we did that, we would need an amount of time in order for us to seek placement. It's going to be quite a job to seek placement for 102 residents or so. So in those situations, we have different choices, but in all of those options, we still have an outstanding debt of 3.5 million that the county would have to retire. Today, we're receiving a small allocation with every single Title 19 skilled nursing resident to help pay off that 3.5 million. I don't have an estimated cost of raising the health center, knocking the building down.
I think that's one thing, a lot of these options would need to have a good estimate for that. Not necessarily a perfect estimate, paying to get an estimate, but we would need some kind of reasonably good idea of what that.
And right. Yes, very good.
Also, I would ask a question on, say there's a little bit going towards retiring the 3.5 million debt. Off in 20, 30 years, what's the rate?
I can look into it. I can't tell you offhand. I believe the debt was in 2008. And so I don't know, but I'll look into the sheer facts. Was that a 20-year debt or not from 2008? But I'll find that out for what's left time-wise on the debt for reimbursement.
Begging the Germans, I know I'm not technically part of this committee, but if you don't mind me asking a question.
Absolutely, the more the better.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, let's go to number 3, renovation of the Samaritan Health Center. As of the county board meeting, we reported that to renovate, we would renovate the health center, but only renovated for 48 beds. Not the 131 beds. We feel it's not prudent to spend that kind of money for that renovation. Some of the renovation will cover the entire building anyway, like new boilers, a new chiller, that type of thing would cover. And we would have to work on what we'll do with the space. And the logic of what floors make the most sense to keep running and what floors would make more sense to offer to the county for other uses, if possible. During the renovation, it will take a long period of time. The fortunate thing is the amount of empty rooms that we do have where we can relocate residents during that process. So it is quite feasible to renovate the building. It's costly, and you need to decide whether or not it's worth $10 million or more to do that. Yes.
So I remember when we looked at this 3 or 4 years ago, the full county board saw this. There was some discussion about that number 48 because it was under 50 and improved reimbursements. And then also it aligned real well with staffing ratios. So we didn't have situations where if we maximized our bed count, we would have to bring on somebody just to care for 2 extra beds. So like say the ratio was 1 to 8, if you have 18 beds, those last 2 beds require a third person. Does that make sense how I'm explaining it? And is that why we've kind of looked at that 48 number here?
Well, 48, what you're saying, you're almost 100% correct. If we stay under 50, regulations are a little different to our favor as a provider. It's in theory, you could actually operate with a 48 bed under 50 with a half-time administrator, a half-time director of nursing. So that helps. In reality, what occurs is the nursing industry is so complicated and so many issues that generally speaking, they still run under 50 with a full-time administrator and a full-time director of nursing. It's sometimes that director of nursing really plays the role of a nurse manager and more hands-on, but in general, that's what occurs.
I have a question. So we have this breakdown from September of 2022 of the 10 million. However, I was wondering if it would be possible to get more detail, like whoever put this together probably has it in a more detailed format, if we would be able to get that to review. I don't know if that's.
Okay, I'll put that on the list, and we could invite the Catalyst Construction Company along with AG Architecture did that. But I'll tell you, it was extremely a ballpark walkthrough. It really wasn't greatly detailed because at that point, we wanted to know the gist of what would it cost, something like that. Is it feasible? And so they did spend 1 day there, but it will cost some dollars to have them go back and go through the building, because even with their estimate, they really couched it with saying, once they break in the walls, they don't know how much asbestos, if any. And I think there is some, but we did an excellent job years ago in the abatement process. So the lion's share of asbestos, it has been removed. But so there are a myriad of things once they break into a 55-year-old building. So we have to weigh the value.
We should back burner that and see if that becomes an option we want to look at in more detail.
Okay. That's a very good point. And at any time, with the committee's direction, I can certainly do that.
If I can add,
Yes.
if I could just. Yep. If I could just add, the high level breakdown was included in the report that was presented at last county board. We certainly can provide that again, but that high level overview was provided if you want to go look back and look at those packets.
Was it a short one like this?
Yep, mhm.
Yeah, I think we have it in the, I think it's included. with
In the packet.
With, yeah, what the task force had,
Okay.
yeah, but thank you.
Okay, and then letter E on the second page just reminds us that the 3.5 million will still exist as ongoing debt, as well as the renovation. Now, the combination of the, let's say it is 10 million and the 3.5, we will be able to pay toward that with, one, the county will be paying a large share. Two, Samaritan Campus through Medicaid will be reimbursed some. But because of the age of the building and the value, in talking with accountants, they don't believe the 10 million will transfer like it would if it was a new building. So we may receive 50% of what that total amount ends up being to recover. But if the committee would like, when we get into this, I could have accountants start looking at it with greater detail.
You talked about if we renovated, you'd keep 48 skilled nursing beds. From the 131, is it possible to break up the license so you could sell the other 83 licenses?
No, that's an excellent question. You get a license, they put a moratorium on any additional beds, therefore you can't sell the beds. One thing we can do, and I talk about it when we get down a little further, the thing you can do is surrender beds to the state, and we receive less of a bed tax fine or bill each year. So with that, if I could reduce it, later on, I talk about an annual savings. If you look at number 4G, if I reduce from 131 to 48 beds, we could save 182,750 a year. And that's something we've been toying with since 2020. And that is because when I reduce those beds, the ability to sell lessens. And that's the juggling we've been doing. And we were hoping that we could come up with some conclusion a lot sooner than the 2 years. But we lost a year in negotiations with Cedar Communities, and that threw a monkey wrench into this whole thing. So we're sitting on one hand paying for empty beds, and on the other hand, holding that in order to attract a buyer. Yes, sir. Yes.
So item 4G, that same item should be under item 3 as well, as maybe like 3G. Because we would have that same savings if we did, you know.
Yeah, we'll have that savings in every option. Okay, so I just wanted to show the replacing of a Samaritan Health Center, but that same option, because once we finalize what we're going to do, that will free us of either completely not needing the license, selling the total license, or deciding whether we're replacing the facility, yes, I agree. And I could easily put that in all the options. Okay, letter F just reminds us, if we're open by April of 2023, I've got to do something with the chiller. Ed, bless you. So what I have to do is probably we're going to put it on the roof. And I'm looking at probably an estimated cost of 100,000. We have 3 chillers. If I buy all new chillers and put them in on the roof, it'll cost 180 to $200,000. If I work with the 1 chiller only, we will probably end up spending close to 100,000 for the simple process of trying to move and readapt the unit that we have on a flatbed today. So it's just a ballpark estimate. Okay, all right, then let's look at number 4, and that's a replacement of the health center.
Actually, Matt, can we go
Yeah.
back to the chiller real quick?
Yes,
When we originally put that in, we were renting that. Are we still renting?
we are still renting that.
Okay, and then if we moved it to the roof, would we then be buying that or would we still be renting?
It depends on this committee. If this committee comes up with a different option, let's say we partner with Lasada, I need it for just one more summer.
So then we'd rent.
Then I rent one more time. I spend all the money to get it on the roof and we run it one summer.
Okay. So that item really also needs to be under item 1 as well.
It'll be on all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so, yeah, we need to
Yes.
figure out each one of these. and
Yes.
How they change with each option.
Sure.
So.
yep.
Yeah,
All right, going on with number 4, replacement of the Samaritan Center. First of all, the RCAC in this plan would stay as is. But we would still have to raise the Samaritan Health Center. So what you would see is a new campus for skilled nursing 48 and CBRF 32. And you would see the 24 apartments as a freestanding assisted living. The health center would be down. We would plant grass, whatever, and you'd have a freestanding unit there. And then up north of this building, the county owns property, and I had designated that property that where we could build the new community. The new community 2 years ago, about 2 years ago, it was estimated to cost 31 million. Today, we're not certain. I'm thinking 33, but it could be as high as 35 million. The combination of funding would be general fund plus a 20-year bond issue. It can be a myriad of combinations. I just selected 15 million from the general fund and 20 million in bonding.
Do you have an idea, has someone put together what the impact on the levy would be then?
No, we have not. We can certainly look at that. It would be, I randomly selected 15 only because of in today's state regulations, the reimbursement and new construction has not been improved or increased in many years. And that's why there's such a shortfall of something like 35 million. We would have to come up with 15 on our own. and then we would be reimbursed 20 million. That's what, at some point, if the committee would like, I will have one of the two accounting firms that I use to come in and do a projection and talk to you about reimbursement and with the number of residents and the likelihood of what we would recover. And that would help steer us into, is it 10 million, 12 million, 15 million,
And is that reimbursement that's over time?
20 years?
20 years. So they would reimburse that much over 20 years. I mean, that's-
Interest in that, yes, or the cost of that.
The whole 20 million?
That's what I'm proposing at this time, but we will have an accounting firm come up with, it's a guess because you're guessing every year reimbursement changes and the different percents, the different components. I was promised in 2020, the state would reconsider the amount for new construction. And of course, there are a lot more owners who are not planning to build, who feel that there's one pot of money. Why take some of that out for new construction when they're not basically looking at new construction? So once again, they voted to keep it in the package where service can be reimbursed instead of new construction.
So I just want to make sure I understand this right. And this is just using the numbers you have here. We'd have to put up 15 million from the general fund.
Yes,
We'd have to take out a bond for 20 million that we get paid back over 20 years. But we think Medicare reimbursement would cover the full cost of that bond. So the taxpayer impact for the bond would be zero.
that's what I'm,
We'd have the 15 million out of the general fund that could have a taxpayer.
Yes.
If we want that.
but we will not take that as gospel. We will have accountants and they will hedge their information as well, because you're asking them to guesstimate 20 years.
Yeah. So there's some risks there that could change them too.
Yes,
Okay.
What about the tax levy of staff?
pardon me?
What about the tax levy of staff?
The tax levy of staffing is something that these scenarios are, I've got this written in this as well. We're looking at a $1 million estimate for operations each year as the tax levy.
Over and above what it currently is, you mean?
Today, we don't have a tax levy. Now, we are bleeding money, that's for sure. But so far, we've been able to afford it through ARPA dollars, and that's just one-time money. I predict that, and I did this in 2020, that we would need $500,000 a year in operation. Now, there will be years with a new campus that I truly believe we could turn a profit. But I don't know when I look through my crystal ball in 20 years. And that's why I felt it was safer at the time to say $500,000. Today, I'm saying $1 million because you can't find staff. And we are burning money. We cannot operate the way we're doing it today. Something's got to give. We neither have to figure out that we go back to paying staff and finding staff at a reasonable dollar amount, or we cannot exist. We are burning through too many dollars to keep staff but we need to do that today because of the shortage and because we have an obligation with the residents we have today. If you, as a committee and as the county board would tell me to close, we would stop admissions immediately because we can't afford to keep having admissions. So, but today we are operating very cautiously.
So, no, you're the
Alright.
chair, go ahead.
Well, I'm just wondering if we stay in contact with, like the technical schools, the colleges that are, around here to find out about, upcoming graduates, the CNA program, the RNs, the LPNs. It might be good to stay in contact with them and maybe see if we can set up something to pull. I know they're inexperienced, so you don't want, you have to look at your ratios on that, what you can deal with. But that might help. And just the fact that the facility would have a long-term life, a future, I think would help somewhat.
It will. It definitely will turn the tide. All the nursing homes are suffering with staff shortages, but we suffer a little more because of being so uncertain. Do I have a job tomorrow? That is a very tough condition to work under. It's not only tough on the employee, it's tough on the resident and the resident's family members not to know what's the time frame and will I need to seek placement. So the whole thing is very, very difficult. And I believe Governor Evers has introduced $5 million and thinking even more to encourage young people to go to school for healthcare because they realize it's a crisis. Yes.
So continuing on with the staffing, but back to the ARPA funds that end at the end of 2026. If we amateurize that out, is it a finite bucket that we have of ARPA funds? Will that last till the end of 2026 is what I'm asking?
Oh,
The incentives we're paying for staffing?
I don't believe our county exec or the county board will allow us to keep using that money for this purpose. I think we need to seek closure and a solution to this crisis. Yes.
What I'm taking away from this is with options 3 and 4 of either replacing Samaritan or renovating Samaritan, we're gonna have a significant risk of staffing costs that are beyond what we can afford.
That's the biggest dilemma we have. That's why I put that up first with the dilemma is staffing right now. And I say that to our staff when I meet with them, because that is a true problem that I've never faced in my time frame. So it's a very, very tough situation.
And I think with, essentially, what's it? Oh, okay. When you look at labor markets, right now, we're in a massive shortage. The laws of supply and demand say that wages are gonna go up until it attracts more workers in. The problem is, private pay, they can afford to increase their wages and they just increase their rents. With us being relying on Medicare and Medicaid reimbursements, those aren't going to go up at anywhere close to that rate. Is that assessment correct in your view too?
Yeah, what makes it more of a dilemma than that is whether you are operating a for-profit nursing home or a not-for-profit nursing home or a government nursing home, that reimbursement is not following the trend. I don't see Title 19 saying you can spend $2 million and $300,000 for the next 18 months and we'll cover it. They're not changing reimburse. They are increasing slightly, but they are not matching that. And so it is a dilemma for all those in the nursing home arena, for profit, not for profit, because even the insurance companies that pay for long-term care, they're not keeping up. And the private and individuals will hit a point that they just cannot afford long-term care, skilled nursing.
And Julie, did you have input on that?
Yeah, Supervisor Grath, I just wanted to know, I'm kind of taking notes of some of the things that might be helpful for you guys to know in the future or deep dive in. Would it be helpful to you if we gave you a report of the strategies that we have deployed for recruitment and retention? So that, because I know it's, you want to come up with other ideas, but so that you have an understanding of some of the things that we've already done?
Yeah. that would be
Okay.
helpful.
Thank you.
Good point. Okay, so with the replacement of Samaritan, the time frame is 18 to 30 months before we would be able to construct and move into a new facility. What's nice about the design that we have, if we are to replace the skilled nursing and CBRF, is we would be building households of 16 units per household, and they would be built in such a way that they would meet all the requirements for skilled nursing as well as CBRF. So at any point, these 32 and the 48 at 16 at a time could be converted from one license to the other. Okay, and any questions about replacement? Okay, letter 5 or number 5, the last one, closing the Samaritan campus. If you see in letter A, if we decide to close Samaritan campus, we would be required to submit to the state survey agency, the state long-term care ombudsman, residents of the facility, and the legal representatives of the residents and other responsible parties with written notification of the plan to close. We would need to have that documentation sent out 60 days prior to the closure. At the moment we notify the state, they will assign state staff who will then become our partners at the community, observing that we follow all the regulations. I'm estimating a time frame of 3 to 6 months to be able to seek placement. Years ago, when a nursing home closed, they could do it within 3 months. Sometimes they do it within 2 months, depending on the population payer mix, as well as the condition of nursing homes in the immediate area. Today, nursing homes are probably in the 1/3 to 2/3 filled, but that's due to the fact that they don't have the staff. So I feel this is going to be a very difficult adventure to seek safe placement. We also have in the placement, within reason, the resident and resident's family member can decide whether or not they're willing to go to such and such facility. But in this situation where it's so difficult, I'm expecting less of an issue because to even find a bed, it's going to be something. And therefore, I don't think you're gonna find that process as difficult as some may believe.
And so the demographics, I mean, I know we have some people that are full pay. So the people that are paying in the full amount, they have more options, right, in going to other locations. But the Medicaid, the Title 19 people is what you're talking about for the most part.
This is exactly, when I did a quick survey, I didn't do it, Tricia did. 78% of our population is Title 19 or family care. And that's going to be the issue, yes. Medicare is typically short-lived, so they're back home. That's not going to be as the problem. The problem will be the long-term, and the majority of long-term care are Title 19 or family care. That's why in letter E, I have estimated $250,000 to $1 million, once again, hoping to secure it from ARPA funds to pay staff to continue. Once it's known that we are going to close, it will be twice as difficult to retain staff. I expect that the bonuses that we're paying today, which are extremely generous, will go up. During that period. Letter F says, if we do close, we will begin to have dialogue about unemployment pay and severance pay once it's closed. So that will be an additional cost. As we get closer and closer to finding and securing placement for residents, I'll start titrating the staff numbers so that we'll have fewer and fewer, affording some of them to leave and secure jobs, and we'll have the bare essentials at the end working at Samaritan until the last person is placed. The Samaritan letter G, Samaritan campus, when it's closed, all Chapter 55 protective placements will require outside placement, and that will be an additional cost maybe to Washington County. In the recent years, we've had fewer and fewer actual Chapter 55s at Samaritan. So I do not see that as a major crisis. And we do have a contract with Clearview for those tougher cases that could go there, and we pay for that. How many Chapter 55s? I don't believe we have any. Okay, this was my preliminary report just to give a flavor of the different options and what we've been wrestling with. Any questions before I sit down?
I think Linda had mentioned that she had an idea that, yeah, so it might be good to hear about that idea.
Let me hand these out.
Thank you. Okay, I could either investigate all these points, the 1 through 6, and then the bullet points under, and get back to you, or I could attempt to answer them now.
Well, let's go, I'll just give you verbally so it's on record, the, idea, and then we can get into details or put them, have you look into it for the next meeting. Basically, this idea would be to close Samaritan and the fields, but by relocating the residents to a private facility in Washington County, by assisting with payment to each private facility for the period of time they require before the facility would accept them under Title 19 or family care. So ideally, we would not need a partnership with the facilities, but that would be one way of possibly doing it. It would function, what I'm envisioning is having it function as a grant program where the resident has to meet certain requirements to qualify. So where a lot of the facilities want you to private pay or full pay for a 2-year period, and then they would accept them under Title 19 or family care, we would pay that 2-year period. So they would be in Washington County. We wouldn't have to deal with the old facility except to take it down. So to me, it kind of is the best of all worlds. But of course, legality would be the first thing to explore.
May I answer that? Okay. Legality won't be the issue because it won't be during that time. It would not be Title 19. It'd be a private pay. Today, we're averaging $364 a day per resident for private pay. That is compared to our Title 19, which is $232 a day. So nursing homes would love that. We serve a fraction of the Title 19 in Washington County. So opening this program, you'd be paying, you might as well build 2 nursing homes.
I think she means just for our
No.
current residents.
For the-
and not open
For
to
the current
community.
residents, which I think that would be kind of a big hit, but actually I am thinking about going forward and we'd have to take a look at that. I mean, say somebody had, say it costs 400,000 for that first 2 years and they, their assets are only 200,000, then they would have to pay, what they have. And then they would qualify for help from the county to get them to the point where they could stay in that facility. So I don't know, I don't know if there'd be a time limit on that. I don't know. I like thinking about our county residents having to go to some other county and, as you say, shortage of beds, finding a place, it's going to be tough. So who knows where? And even future people, if they've run out of money and they need to, move into a facility. To me, charity has always been my view of charitable things to do is help those who really need the help. And the old people, especially if they need skilled nursing, they really need the help. There's no question about it. If they have no assets, they really need the help. So where we do so many other charitable things, United Way and other things like that, Salvation Army, I've seen some cases, in my opinion, that they kind of get used to a handout and expect a handout. But when you're talking about old people that need skilled nursing, they need that. They have nothing else. And I feel that we have a moral responsibility to help them. So that's why I think something like this could work, and I did minimal amount of pricing. Maybe, you know, I don't know how many people really need skilled nursing versus assisted living, you know, that has maybe a little more support to it. Then I know there's different levels of support for assisted living. That would be a cheaper option. You know, so it seems from my uneducated viewpoint in this area that we seem to be going more in the direction of assisted living than skilled nursing anyway. I mean, skilled nursing has reduced so much over time. You know, that maybe a lot of people could qualify to be in an assisted living environment. My grandfather did to age 98.
I would like to suggest that I'd like to work with you outside of this committee and have you dictate the parameters, and then I can work around that to show the actual cost and the pluses and minuses.
Yeah, and that's basically what I'm looking to do, is just check the feasibility of it, because, you know, if it is feasible, I think it would be a great solution, but I don't really know, so.
I think the one thing I'd like to say is I think that's a great creative idea. And any of us, if we come up with creative ideas like that, let's explore them. Certainly, I would rather do something like what Linda's proposing versus partnering with Sheboygan, where these residents are now going to be moved up to Plymouth, which is a decent distance away. This would allow those residents to stay in our community. Yeah, I'm guessing the numbers will work out that we could only do this for existing residents in Samaritan. But let's see what the numbers look like and see if that's viable. And that becomes another possibility for us to explore as we work through this.
Absolutely.
Along with that, I think the discussion would have to be held about closing admissions, because if we're currently accepting admissions, we would have to look at that, so we don't, right?
Keep in mind,
Go for the-
it's a two-edged sword, or two-edged sword, because as we close admissions, we're shutting down revenue. And that means the county's picking up to keep the operation going. So keep that in mind. That's what makes it so difficult that at some point we will pull the plug, and then you're going to see a swing in the actual deficit. Okay, but I'll look into that. Are these other ones different too?
Well, at the very bottom, I've got a couple of different, I'm not sure how legalities would work, you know, so I was thinking maybe we would partner with multiple facilities, but in a way that the agreement would be more of a one-to-one, you know, per resident, not a group of residents, or possibly if a facility would have, you know, a half a dozen beds available, maybe we would partner with them for that and use multiple facilities.
Please keep in mind, for partnership, if we look at some type of private or in lieu of private, if the county opts to spend taxpayers' money doing that, we can come up with a plan, and I'll work with you with a scenario. But if it's Title 19, the restrictions won't allow any kind of subsidy for that payment. So, but I can work with you on that.
So then, and then the other one that I had on here is a lease, because we were going to do a lease with Cedar Communities, right?
Yep.
So maybe it would be a lease type of format.
And we are looking at, that's in part, we're looking at that with the Lasada partnership. So that's right on. That's one of the options. Yes.
Okay, sounds good. I look forward to working with you on that.
Okay.
See what
Oh,
we can do
wonderful.
together.
Is that?
I'm also curious, if something like this starts to work, where the beds are in Washington County. There was a lot of uproar about Lasada being far from West End. Well, I drive from Germantown here, and it's further to Germantown, where a lot of facilities are. than
Yeah.
Sawdust, so. Balancing act.
Yeah, and that's all detailed here on information we will need.
Yep. Yes. Excellent.
We may want to pause the meeting so we make sure. Focused on.
Oh, okay, I guess
Yeah.
let's just pause here a little bit. Back, ready to go? We like our legal. Knowing what's happening here. Okay, did we have anything else on, does anyone have any other questions, comments?
I can sit down.
Lost my screen.
Huh?
I think at this point, your charge is trying to figure out how we set up the next meeting.
Yeah, and when and how often we should meet?
Yeah, understanding we've got the holidays and we
Okay.
have a deadline at the end of January, so.
Yeah, does anyone have an idea of like how often we should meet? I'm kind of thinking maybe like every other week.
Well, did
Because
the
we have a
task
short
force-
deadline.
Do we know, did the task force meet? Weren't they meeting originally every other week? Do you recall the task force schedule? How often? they
I
met?
think
You
they
can
met
talk
once
from
a
your mic
month,
over there.
but
We only met 3 times.
yeah,
We strategically waited until we had the speakers lined up and had 3 action-packed meetings where we had a lot of information.
does anyone here have an interest on having speakers in on it, on any topic?
Only just some of the ones that Matt said he would,
Mhm.
the accountants and the.
Yeah. Okay,
Supervisor Grath. Supervisor Grath,
yes.
if I could just put in my 2 cents for whatever it's worth, I think, to do good justice to this process, I would recommend that, we look at every option fully and really look at every detail. And so I think we would look to you to sort of set the tone for how we go through each of those options. And because Matt's going to have to set up speakers, or we're going to have to put together data and reports. And so dependent on sort of the cadence on how you want to go through all of these options, I think then would help us determine, how quickly we could get that together for you.
Thank you. So what do you think of maybe if we meet approximately every other week? Not sure how many weeks we have. And we have holidays in there. It might work out that we could concentrate on one of these options at each of those meetings. So we would need probably 7 meetings if we do the 5 options here, this idea, and then one to bring it all together and make decisions. Does that work time-wise?
We have 12 weeks, so that would not work.
And if that's counting the Thanksgiving Wednesday.
And,
And
well,
Christmas.
yeah, and then if we would fall on a board meeting night too.
Right.
We'd have that week.
Okay, so is there,
No, you don't have to meet on Wednesdays.
yeah, we'll have to talk about
The
what
whole Saturday.
works.
I'm also wondering if we can talk about more than one topic on a meeting too. I
Yeah,
bet we
like
can.
which
Yeah.
ones do you think we should combine?
Since to talk about renovating and rebuilding, so options.
Together, 3 and 4
at the
together.
same meeting. So should we maybe talk about those 2 for the next meeting? And get more detail? I don't know. What do you guys think?
That works for me.
Sound good?
Yeah, let's do that if everyone's, do we need to make a motion? I'm used to informal,
said it.
Republican Women's Group, I'm not used to.
Yeah, Mike's
Formal,
saying we
formal.
don't need a motion.
Don't need a
for that.
motion?
Yeah,
Okay,
so you can just as a
Um,
chair decide that.
all right, so the next meeting, let's go in detail then on 3 and 4. So if there's anything you guys specifically want to see or discuss on 3 or 4, we're gonna have to, give Matt the information on what we're gonna want to look at
Mike,
and through Mike. So keep that in mind. And then so that's 3 and 4. The public-private partnership, public-public, that kind of fits in sort of with mine or Lasada. Lasada, we need to save that towards the end, right?
Mm.
At this point.
2 weeks from now is county board night.
And yeah, let's just go with that part for now. Okay, so if we look at 2 weeks from now, so the week of November 7th.
The 8th is going to be election day and the 9th will be county board.
Yeah, that's a busy week. And I have Monarch Library on the 10th too. Daytime, evening, what time of day works best for all of you?
Evening,
Evening?
please.
Yeah.
Yes.
Friday afternoon, particularly good day for me. I don't know how that works for everybody else.
As long as it's late in the day, I'm open for any day.
Yeah, actually, that Friday works for me too, and we probably want to avoid Fridays for the most part, but how about Friday this time, because we have election
Yeah.
at the beginning of the week, would that be okay with you guys?
Yep.
All right, so do you want to make it like 4 o'clock or 3:30 again?
Is that considered evening for you or?
3:30 was a little bit of a push for me. I mean, I don't want to inconvenience everybody here, but 4 o'clock would be a lot easier for me.
Okay. 4
That's
o'clock,
good for
okay?
me, yeah.
All right, so November 11th, 4 o'clock is when we'll meet again.
Whoever comes from the clerk's office to clerk that. Happy on a Friday.
Sorry. We'll try not to do that again, though. Okay, so, and that would be concentrating on 3 and 4. All right, do we have anything else we need to talk about? Then I guess, do we have a motion to adjourn? Do we need a motion to
You don't
adjourn?
need- You
You can
just
just
decide,
adjourn.
All right, meeting adjourned.
knock the gavel.